Ira, do you think it's bad for my personal brand if people know that I'm a Christmas crazy person?
No. I think because you're named after the holiday?
I'm not named after Christmas, nor am I named, as my children have started to spread the rumor, named after Christopher Robin from Winnie the Pooh. I am known by my family members as Colonel Christmas, which is a reference to how militant I can be about Christmas tradition, but it's all out there now. My name is Chris Ying. Welcome to Ying Cooks the Internet. Today, I'm going to be making a full Christmas dinner for, let's say 4 people, but really 6 people for under $50. I noticed there were a lot of these types of things on the internet, on Instagram, on TikTok, suggestions for sort of budget Christmas dinners. I'm looking at one right now that's like a pot roast that's done in a crock pot. It's very gray looking. I feel like when you put meat into a crock pot or an Instant Pot, it just comes out kind of shredded and gray. You don't get that really roasty Maillard reaction that sort of, to me, says beef, says Christmas. It's fine. It's fine. Although putting a bunch of au jus mix and ranch dressing mix onto this meat feels a little anti-Christmas spirit. And then over on TikTok, you've sort of got people doing these more stunty ones. So I went to the grocery store, and before I go to the grocery store, I check my little grocery store app to see what the weekly specials are, what the deals are, the coupons are, and all of that sort of thing. And I noticed that one of my favorite cuts was on sale for $4.99 a pound. So this is a shoulder. A shoulder. This is a chuck roast, which comes from the shoulder of the cow. It is also known as a 7-bone steak because there's a shoulder bone that goes through it that kind of looks like a 7. And it's just a mix of a whole bunch of really not tender, but very flavorful, really nicely marbled cuts and muscles of the cow. And so I actually went a little overboard and bought 2 of them because they were so cheap. All right, I bought 3 of them, and I left one at home in my freezer. But this is a super economical, super flavorful cut of meat, and I highly recommend it for serving big groups of people. And you're not going to get the medium rare prime rib thing, but you're going to get all of the aromas of Christmas roast beef. And this was on sale for $4.99 a pound. So this 2.5 pound chuck roast was $12.72. This one was $11.83 for a 2.37 pound piece of chuck roast. I bought 2 because I thought, I got some hungry folks here at the office who might need a little extra meat. They're growing boys and girls. But yeah, chuck roast is super flavorful. It is almost always on sale. And so I'm cheating a tiny bit because these were especially cheap. This was $4.99 a pound. But seriously, chuck roast is on sale all of the time. And it freezes super well. You can buy a whole big fat one too, instead of 2 smaller ones, and chuck it in the freezer. Is that why they call it chuck roast? No. Okay, chuck roast. Couldn't be simpler to prep this thing. So you can sort of see this is not going to be a good medium rare steak. This is all just working muscle. You know what I mean? That cow's just putting in work all day, walking the fields, sending emails, just doing their TPS reports. No, this is muscle that moves and muscle that develops flavor. So it's not going to be your steak thing, although there is a chuck steak. This is nice, slow cooking stuff. So just season it pretty aggressively. At the end, we're going to have a little mushroom beef gravy on top. So, if you under-season it tiny, you can cover all your sins with gravy. We're not going to sear this. It is going to get all of the color it needs in the oven. Just trust. I think that was pretty aggressive, right? I really aggressively seasoned my cutting board. But I think this is like a really legitimate pursuit to try to make dinner for, you know, I know, like I said, I think it is a noble thing to try to make the $20 discount store Christmas dinner to help people trying to do that. But I also think that, I think $50 is a pretty reasonable thing to spend, right? Like that seems like an affordable 4 or 6 person Christmas dinner. I'm not like blowing the bank account, right?
Oh, I think it's 4 to 6 people, that's great.
Because listen, times are tough all over. That's it. That right there is the antithesis of everything they tell you to do, which is to brown the meat first, which is to not crowd the pan. We're not gonna brown it, and we are gonna crowd the holy hell out of this pan. So a big, thick, preferably cast iron pan if you've got one. Otherwise, you know, whatever heavy bottomed thing you can. Into a 400 degree oven. 400 degrees for, let's call it 25, 30 minutes. And then we're gonna turn it down to 325 and let it sort of, covered, it's going to kind of steam and roast at the same time. And you are gonna peek at it after an hour and you're gonna see just a gray mass and you're gonna be very worried. But trust me, you just let it keep going. It will brown, it'll turn beautiful, it'll be awesome. Okay, I'm gonna make Yorkshire pudding. This is a classic accompaniment to a Sunday roast, to, you know, British style roast beef. And I love it. I think it's an incredibly delicious. How do you describe this thing? You're drinking my coffee?
That's not your coffee.
What do you describe a Yorkshire pudding as?
I've never had Yorkshire pudding.
You're a heathen, man. What? What?
I wanted you to have something special today.
Oh my God, Noel, that is insane.
You've had it a bunch of times and you're humiliating me, but you don't actually know what it is. So that's great.
It's like it's a baked. Mm-hmm. Is it cake? A pudding? A custardy souffle bread.
Described by people who sound like they've had it a bunch.
I don't know how to describe it. It is weirdly British thing. You make a batter, and then you basically cook it in beef fat in a hot oven, and it poofs up and it gets crispy and light and airy. It's a delicious accompaniment to gravy and beef drippings and all of that stuff. And you get it whenever you have prime rib. So I don't have a muffin tin here, so I'm gonna do it in a pan, which I've never done before, but I know they do at the House of Prime Rib in San Francisco, so I'm sure it'll work for me. This is about 165 grams of flour, including the weight of this thing. So I'm weighing it because I want to do basically the same amount of milk. Dave Chang was the last one to use this cart of eggs, and I've never seen this happen before. Good Lord, man. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4.
I've never made this before.
So you're gonna make this into a batter that's gonna be a little bit thinner than a pancake batter and a little thicker than a crepe batter. Hi, Christian.
We're not rolling, Chris. You can just come on.
He's so scared to be on camera.
Got
We
him.
got him! We got him! Okay, I think that's pretty good. So that's it. Again, dead simple. All stuff that you probably have in your pantry: milk, eggs, flour, salt. So most instructions will tell you to rest this. And some people say like half an hour. I think the great Kenji Lopez Alt says 3 days or something crazy like that. But I agree with all of it because I've tried to make this. I try to make Yorkshire pudding sort of a la minute, and I don't know what happens, but it just doesn't puff. It gets like a little shy, and it kind of just like, you want it to be like, and then it turns into this little cup-shaped, looks like a chef's toque. But if you don't rest it, for some reason, it kind of just stays like a shy little raisin. Noelle won't even look at me. I want to show you this receipt to prove the reality of this $45-ness. Okay, to recap all of the ingredients for this dinner, I bought 4 potatoes. These are all about a pound each. Grocery store charged me 10 pounds for 10 pounds of potatoes, but I really only have 4 or 5 pounds of potatoes here. 2 bags of organic chopped spinach from the freezer section. I got a little tub of sour cream for $2.99. And basically the second most expensive thing I bought was a jar of fresh ground horseradish for $3.79. Good and hot, just like your boy. Mushrooms, and then the beef. That was $12.72 and $11.83. That is everything that I bought. Everything else is just sort of stuff I had here at the kitchen. Eggs, flour, butter. Don't at me about the technicalities here. All right, so we've basically done 30% of the work for this Christmas dinner. Beef is a roasting. Yorkshire pudding batter is a resting. And we are going to go drink some eggnog and mulled wine and hopefully be sober enough to finish this cooking off. So we'll be right back. Then we're back. So I was just unpacking the rest of the groceries I brought them from home today, and I had stuffed them into this tote bag that I grabbed out of our closet, and I reached into this little secret compartment in here, and I found these Reese's peanut butter cups. Now, I do not know when I last used this bag. I do not recall putting them in there myself. They're not expired yet. So I think this qualifies as a Christmas miracle. The baby Jesus, Lord God, our Savior, is looking down upon our endeavors today positively. It's been an hour. Let's take a look at this thing. Finding candy. Man, it's gonna be a good day. So it's been an hour. I turned the heat down to 350 after the first 30 minutes. Can you see this, Ira?
Kind of. Get your phone.
It's pretty gray. We'll take a video. This is about an hour in. But you can see beginnings of color change. So it's gonna turn, it's gonna work. That's gonna keep going for another hour or so. And it's kind of doing the amazing thing. And this is like a great way to cook any sort of large cut of meat, I think, is just in a heavy lidded pot. It's gonna sort of steam and roast at the same time in its own juices. I'm sure there's a term for that. Steam roasting, stoasting, reaming. It's reaming in there. As my meat is getting reamed, I'm gonna work on the just stop shaking your head, Ira. We're gonna work on the next part. And I wanted to say this. We're making this simple, easy Christmas dinner. And it's gonna come in under $45. And I legitimately make this dinner throughout the year whenever I feel like we have company coming over and I want to do something like a little festive, and like that little Christmas monster inside me is just like scratching from my insides trying to come out and make people celebrate Christmas in the middle of August. I will make something like this. I'll make this exact thing. So I'll do a roast a chuck roast, cream spinach, baked potatoes, Yorkshire pudding, And it turns into, it's like a pretty affordable way to make this whole thing. So what am I gonna do next? Let's make cream spinach. I love cream spinach. Whenever I go to, so you've never had Yorkshire pudding, Ira. That means you've never been to like a Lowry's or a House of Prime Rib or any of these kinds of like prime ribby restaurants, huh?
I've never been invited.
And you never will be. So if you go to these places, these kind of prime rib houses, or you go to, you know, any sort of place that serves prime rib, they're gonna give you the option of, you know, which cut you want. You want a thinner slice, you want a thicker slice. Do you want, you know, with the bone, without the bone, medium rare, whatever. And then they're gonna give you your choice of sides: cream spinach, cream corn, mashed potato, baked potato. I am a cream spinach man, big time. Big time cream spinach man. I love cream spinach, and I will make it every holiday. I'll do cream spinach on the stove. So like the idea with cream spinach basically is you're gonna make a roux, butter and flour, onions, garlic, all the good stuff, and then you're going to saute all your spinach in there, or whatever leafy greens, honestly, anything that'll hold up to long cooking, chard, kale, turnip greens. I like to throw a little bit of seaweed in there, shio kombu, like salt-cured seaweed is a nice little touch into cream spinach. But since I'm trying to do this super simple style and frankly on a budget, I'm gonna do it in the microwave. It's gonna be perfectly delicious. I forgot to get flour. I'll be right back. Regular old all-purpose flour. I found some nutmeg back there, which I'll throw in too. So I just melted the butter in here. And to make this roux, I'm gonna add basically equal parts flour to the butter. So that was, you know, a stick of butter and the equivalent amount of flour. And you can cook a roux to various degrees of brownness. You know, obviously, they'll do a darker roux for gumbos and jambalayas in New Orleans and things like that. But for this purpose, we're just trying to cook some of the rawness out of it, and that's it. All right, see, it is basically cooked out that rawness from the flour. We can probably let it go for another few seconds. Did you see that? Okay, so cream spinach. We've got our roux, to which we are going to add milk. Could I be honest with you guys? I don't remember. I know I've done this before. I just have a weird feeling that I'm doing this wrong. I can't remember what I usually do. Salt. I'll add a little fish sauce. All right, so I'm gonna cook this, which is basically a bechamel sauce. And then I'm gonna add the spinach to it and continue to cook it. And we'll see how that goes. 2 minutes in there. So while the spinach is doing that, I'm gonna start baked potatoes, which could not be easier. I basically just do a little, I forget where I was introduced to this method, but basically like a little, just puncture this with a fork in a little X shape so that you can hopefully kind of squish, at the end you're gonna be able to kind of squish the potato open along these seams you're creating. It also vents the potato as it's roasting. I think some people will tell you to wrap these in foil when you roast them, when you bake them. But I love to just throw them in the oven as is. 400-degree oven. I don't like cheese in a baked potato. I know that might be sacrilegious. My baked potato, my dream potato, butter, salt, chives for sure, bacon bits if they're available, but I don't need them. I do like a little salty burst in there. The salt kind of covers. And then an ungodly amount of sour cream. All right, that's our bechamel currently. It's starting to thicken up quite a bit. All right, I thought I needed 2 bags, but I might not need 2 bags of spinach. I don't know, that looks pretty creamy. Maybe a little bit more spinach. This is more than enough spinach for 4 or 6 people. A little nutmeg in there. Pepper. I'm gonna get a little more liquid from this spinach, so I'm not gonna add, it's a little thick, but I think that it will resolve itself in here. I don't really want to blast it, so I'm gonna go 2 minutes at 70%. So now is the time, as the beef is reaming, potatoes are baking, spinach is cooking, and pudding is resting. Now is the perfect time for you to duck outside, get away from the family, crush a garage beer, come back in with the spirit of Christmas all over your face. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. I'm making this super simple, my go-to Christmas dinner. Roast beef, baked potatoes, Yorkshire pudding, cream spinach, all the works. These potatoes have been in this oven for about an hour. And while they're not exactly there yet, they're pretty darn close. So I'm gonna let them go a little longer. The other nice thing is hear this? Nice papery skin on these guys. So these are close. These were monster potatoes, but I think generally an hour 10 for potatoes is right. Let's take a peek at this guy. And I promised you that it was going to brown, and I didn't lie to you. This is what it looks like now. It's getting nice and brown. It's been almost 3 hours, I think, since we put this in. It's like 1 now, 12, 11, 10. Yeah, it's been about 3 hours. And it is pretty darn tender. I'm gonna let it keep going just for a minute while we get ourselves situated with everything else. So all told, this was probably in the microwave for 8 minutes. I would do it for 2 minutes and then kind of stir just to make sure nothing is kind of burning. And then put it back in there for another couple of minutes. But that looks like cream spinach to me. And it can stand another couple minutes in there, but you know it's kind of done when it's no longer bechamel with spinach. It is one cohesive thing. You can see the spinach kind of tinted all of the cream, this lovely green color. Oh. Oh. Let's get the rest going. I'm gonna crank the oven back up. I'm gonna turn the oven back up for the Yorkshire pudding, which likes nice high heat. This is what this looks like. I think it's pretty tender, seeing as half of it just fell off. All right, so all of this is what I want. All this juice and mostly fat is A+ stuff. So I'm gonna get a little cup to pour this into, excuse me. All right, I'm back. The other thing the internet seems to be obsessed with is making Christmas dinner with sous vide. And I have nothing against sous vide, but there's nothing about this that needs sous videing. All right. I'm not gonna wash this pot because this is what you want. Ow, good God. This is the stuff that makes gravy for us. I poured it into here so I could sort of easily skim some fat that I need. And since I don't have a muffin tin, which is traditionally how you would kind of get a nice little individual Yorkshire pudding, I'm just gonna use a pan. Like I said, this is how they do it at the House of Prime Rib, probably my favorite restaurant in America, in San Francisco, is they bake their Yorkshire puddings in pans. So I'm gonna heat the pan in a hot oven. I'm gonna retrieve our batter, which I covered up. I'm gonna deal with these mushrooms as I think about stuff. I always stem these and then throw the stems into some kind of a stock or broth. I don't know what everybody else does. I'm a big proponent of rinsing mushrooms off just to get the dirt. I don't believe that anything happens in this rinsing process. The beef is basically done. It's just sitting there waiting to be sliced up. And in fact, maybe covered with foil just so it doesn't dry out over here. The potatoes are just hanging out in the oven right now. They're just gonna hang there until I say they're allowed to come out. Spinach is ready. All we need to do is make Yorkshire pudding and gravy. So I'm gonna do gravy. I'm gonna get gravy going, and then I'm gonna get the Yorkshire in the oven, and hopefully this will all come together at the same time. This happens to me all the time. I'm in a really good place. Mentally, physically, I mean, obviously physically, I'm in an incredible place. But I'm just chilling. I've been pounding nog all day. I feel like there's been all this downtime. The cooking's going slowly. I'm under control. I got my lists. I'm rocking. And then the last 30 minutes is this mad dash to the finish line because I've left everything to try to come together at the exact same time, and all my careful planning sort of goes out the window at the very last second. And one thing you can do to sort of avoid that is to get your plateware and stuff all sorted out and ready to go. So this is gonna be potatoes. This is gonna be beef and Yorkshire puddings. We'll serve the spinach straight out of there. We'll have an optional bowl of gravy here just in case. Let's do actually Yorkshire puddings and we'll do gravy there. So our receptacles are ready. For our gravy, get that same pan on there. I'm gonna take, I'm gonna harvest some of this for my Yorkshire puddings first because they need the fat. They need the fat more than anybody else. That's one. Let's call that two. I just wanna have all this fat so I can use it for my Yorkshire puddings. So the Yorkshire puddings, they basically get not fried, but you cook them in that rendered beef fat, which is why, man, it's actually one of the, it's like a crazy, I don't know what you would call this, Ira, but it's like this amazing symbiotic relationship. I don't know how many dishes there are that are like this, but this symbiotic relationship between the Yorkshire pudding and the roast beef is incredible to me, where they go perfectly well together, but you need the fat from the beef to make the Yorkshire pudding. It's a beautiful, like I said, symbiosis. I'm gonna throw these mushrooms in here. That's how you do like a red eye gravy, as you sort of cook your ham steak in a pan, and then just dump your morning coffee into the drippings. That's also a symbiotic thing. But there's something even more special about, I just think like this is the apotheosis of that concept. I'm gonna grab one more ingredient. Two more ingredients. I'm back. I grabbed a couple things out of the pantry, which we'll get to in a second. But our mushrooms are sweating in here. Lots of fat. This is good stuff too. This is gonna be, these drippings are gonna be more of our flavor, but I wanted just like an extra little boost. And whether or not you have this particular bouillon that comes as a paste or, whatever beef bouillon you have, I really like this. It's just, it just smells like au jus from a roast beef French dip sandwich, which I think is great. And I'm just gonna use like the tiniest bit of it. I like using Worcestershire sauce or fish sauce as kind of like a little extra umami, saltiness, a little sugar just in case we need it, black pepper, but that's basically all of our gravy ingredients. And I'm gonna do a little, we'll do water. You wanna do water or should we do milk? We'll do water. You can do, obviously you can do red wine. It's probably the classic thing. But if you're like me, you're cooking on a little bit of a budget, it's always a bummer to just like pour half a bottle of wine into this pan instead of into this pan. That was half a teaspoon of this bouillon, I think. Maybe a tiny bit more. Is all, just a dab will do you. So I've done like a super hacky version of this where I just put flour right on there and it looks like a right mess. But drippings, a little Wawa, a little Worcestershire sauce, pepper, some salt. And you just want to scrape everything off the bottom. All those souks and fond. That's all the flavor, right? That's like all the stuff that has been generated through the Maillard effect. That's pretty good, by the way. Just a tiny bit of, I don't want sweet and sour sauce. I'm not chasing, I don't want General Tso's in here, but I do want just enough to balance out the salty and give it a little roundness. I'm gonna let that chill. All right, so here's the moment of truth. Earlier I made this Yorkshire pudding batter. It's been hanging out in the fridge for 3 hours. Like I said, you can make this way in advance if you want. I've never done this part. I've never made Yorkshire pudding in a pan. All right, so here's this. Some fat in there. Again, I have never done this in a pan like this, so I don't know how it's gonna turn out. But let's find out. Into our oven. I'm gonna do it with a little convection action. I have no idea. If this doesn't work, I'll come up with something else. If this particular Yorkshire pudding doesn't come out, I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Let's get our beef, which looks pretty good. So for this, I'm just doing big, lovely chunks of beef. And like I said, these chuck roasts contain a multitude of different muscles with different grains and different directions. You know, like, do your best to identify where the grains are and go against them. You can see I did it the wrong way with this one, but I probably did the right with this one. It's not gonna be, it's not steak, it's not roast beef, or it's not, rather, prime rib. It's not gonna ruin your day if you don't end up slicing it exactly right. See, like, look at this, it's crazy. This muscle goes this way, then this muscle goes this way, and they're just touching each other. This is very tender. And so you see me just like sawing at it. It's not because it's tough, it's because I'm putting very little pressure on the knife and just praying that the not sharpness of this will go through. Because I don't want to, if I just like jam at it, I'm just going to shrink it into little shreds, which isn't the end of the world. But I don't want to just serve a big mess of, I've saw like a bunch of those ones I was looking at on Instagram and TikTok were these just kind of shreds of beef. And it just has like a real cafeteria vibe to it. Let's check on this thing. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'll wait until it's done to reveal why I'm oh my godding. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, what's happening in there. I want to show you this whole process from start to finish, meaning I wanted to show you taking the meat straight out of the package, cooking it. But really, if you were doing this at home, the best thing you could do for yourself would be to take this beef out a day or two in advance and season it ahead of time. Let it sit there, let the salt penetrate. Take it out of the package, salt it. You don't even have to cover it. I'd actually think like letting some of the air take care of some of the moisture would be good. And for thick cuts of meat like this, salting something, if you think about it this way, like salt enters the meat through osmosis. So salt always wants to be in balance. So the inside of your steak, inside of your meat is not salty, but it has liquid. That liquid's gonna come to the surface, it's gonna dissolve the salt, and it's gonna draw that salt into the flesh, into the cells of the meat until it reaches equilibrium. If I just put some salt on there, it's not gonna have any time to penetrate the meat. For a thick cut of meat like this, or like a whole bird or a whole pork shoulder or some big primal cut of meat, you wanna salt it and let the salt penetrate over the course of 2 or 3 days so that the center of the meat is fully, I almost said fully erect, fully seasoned. Muy delicioso. It is, I really love chuck roast. So, it sounds so dumb, but it's so beefy and just flavorful in that way. It tastes the way prime rib smells. How about that? Here, we're gonna get our potatoes going too. Pop some butter, a little bit of salt into each of these taters. I have to do a meeting that I forgot about, but I'm very prepared for. Don't worry, Scott. And we'll be right back. 1 second. All right, I'm done with my phone call. And just as I was saying earlier, true to form, you think you're on track, and then something happens in the holidays and you get thrown off. This is my first go at the Yorkshire pudding, which tastes great, but it didn't poof without a muffin tin. I also think I didn't do enough batter. So I'm gonna do 2 more. I'm gonna dress this, and we're gonna finish up. All right, so some fat in the pan. Let's try this again. I'm gonna do more batter and see if I can get a poof. I don't think I have I don't know if it's gonna work, but oil up along the sides. Back in the oven. You know what? If the Yorkshire puddings aren't poofy, too bad. Ira's never even had one, so he doesn't know they're supposed to poof.
I was gonna say that looks.
As far as he knows, this is the greatest.
Exactly like every Yorkshire pudding I've ever had.
This is the best Yorkshire pudding he's ever seen. I'm going to dress this meat with a little gravy. I like a sort of thick gravy for turkey and Thanksgiving and all that. My ideal beef gravy is still like an au jus, so more jus than thick and creamy. So this to me is perfect. The beef part is done first. Baked potatoes. Make a little horseradish sauce with sour cream, a little bit of mayonnaise, and I don't know, you a horseradish guy?
Love it.
I freaking love horseradish, man. I feel like it's the kind of thing that I would get made fun of at school for liking. It's the kind of thing that I think is delicious and normal that other people think is strange and intense. So I add a little bit of Worcestershire just so it has like a little flavor other than horseradish. A little salt. Again, just like a tiny bit of sugar. And I think you can use, if I had a lemon, I would probably squeeze a little lemon in there. But I didn't include that in my budget. Cream spinach, which I think looks pretty nice. I didn't buy these scallions, but I found them in the fridge. As you can see, they're pretty bruised and battered. This is the whole thing. That was it. That is $45 for a, is it okay to say poop ton? A poop ton of food. That's 6 people at least. I feel extremely satisfied with this. But before I get to even taste it, Ira is gonna whisk it away over to that table to take a beautiful, sweeping, human drone shot of all of this food that you are gonna see right now. And we're gonna pop back over here, magically create a plate, and I'm gonna eat it. This is like that moment for anybody out there who has ever birthed a child or been present for the birth of a child. This is exactly what's happening right now. The baby has come out. You've been waiting 9 months to meet your new family member. It's emerged from its mother's womb. You're just overcome with emotion. You're swooning over this, the world's most beautiful child. It is, it is the apex of life. You've procreated. All you want to do is snuggle with your little baby, and then Dr. Shoot whisks it away into to be weighed and measured and
switched with someone else.
Switched with somebody else's baby. Delightful, delightful, delightful. I want a little bit of this. You need to do some horsey sauce. Come on. Tell me that's not a pretty good plate of Christmas food for 6 people. I finally got my baby back from the doctor, so I can finally eat it. A little horseradish sauce. I'm gonna say this. The best part of a piece of prime rib is the spinalis dorsi, the lifter, the part around the edge of the prime rib. That frankly is not medium rare. It's closer to well done, but it's super tender. This is the most marbled, most beefy flavored piece of the prime rib. I eat the medium rare center, the rib roast part of it, so that I can eat that exterior part. That is what that basically is. Just the most beefy, tender, perfectly cooked part of the well done part of the steak, dressed in a very au jus-y gravy, horseradish sauce on the side, heavy on the horseradish, a crispy skinned, papery skinned baked potato. Oh my God, baked potato is so good. Baked potato is so underrated. So does this move. A little bit of cream spinach into your baked potato. Unreal. My little Yorkshire puddings didn't poof because I did them in this pan, but they still look sexy as hell. Look at that thing. Sexy. And they're exceedingly good for just sopping up gravy and wetness. This is the Yorkshire pudding is the diaper of Christmas dinner. Just there to absorb all of the juices. And there you have it. I have the receipts to prove it. This is enough food for, come on, 6?
6.
Maybe 8 if you split those potatoes in half. 6 or 8 people. It was 40, 45 bucks all in. Very super leisurely cooking process. And I don't feel like there's anything hacky about this. I don't feel like any of this was stunty. I would feel legitimately very proud to serve this to my loved ones on Christmas, on any holiday. There's no weird processed food component to this. I didn't have to rely on any boxed thing. I love stovetop as much as the next guy, but I wanted to make a proper Christmas feast that is dead simple, has all of the flavors, the festiveness, the celebratory nature of a proper Christmas dinner, feels pretty British, and I'm super, super happy with this. And I think if you're out there trying to figure out what to do for 4, 6, or 8 people, and you don't want to spend a lot of money, and you want to make something really, really, really delicious, cannot go wrong with a chuck roast, cream spinach, Yorkshire pudding, baked potato, all of the sides. Man, Colonel Christmas approves. I'm so sad that I put that out there. I had just gotten this. I was trying to be, most recently, I was trying to act cool about Christmas and not be so intense about you have to open the presents in this order. You have to do this thing. We have to have this. Where are my little ornaments that like this? I was trying to be chill. And I was just starting to kind of shed the whole Colonel Christmas persona. But I'm back. I'm back. And I demand your attention. So Merry Christmas, down and give me 20. And thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel. We are continually changing, evolving, growing things, including this show, which I know has had a bunch of wild, wacky stuff, and we're going to try to zero in on what exactly it is we can do that's most helpful and entertaining to you. There's all sorts of cool seasonal content happening here, and we really, 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 really super, super, super appreciate you watching and subscribing and liking, and I wish you all the very best this holiday season. Oh my God, look at this. I just didn't let it cook long enough. Look at this Yorkshire pudding, Noel. This thing is insane. I just didn't give it time to poof. Is that what it's supposed to look like? No, but it looks pretty good. Look at that thing, guys. Oh my God, I'm so proud. That's insane. Oh. That's 2 Christmas miracles.